On the financial markets in London, Frankfurt and Paris, this is how European shares are trading, and on the currency markets, a euro is now worth 86 pence.
Good morning from the Museum of Science and Industry. I'm Vishala Sripathma. I'm here today to find out about how energy and science are going to be impacted after Brexit. Now, this is the Power Hall. It's the most magnificent room. It's got all these old-style steam engines, and we've been having fun all this morning being shown how they all worked. We're really transported to a different era. Now, nuclear is one of the most heated topics in science and energy post-Brexit, largely over our membership over something called Euratom. It's a treaty. You'll be forgiven if you've never heard of it before. Something that does, someone who knows a few things about it is Tom Greatrex, the Chief Executive of the Nuclear Industry Association. Now, Tom, can you explain to us why Euratom is so important and what's going to happen if we leave?
Well, the government have suggested they'll be leaving in 2 years from triggering Article 50. That means we've got 2 years to put in place a whole range of arrangements that currently exist under Euratom. That means the inspection for safeguarding of all nuclear facilities in the UK. It's the research into fusion research that happens in Culham in Oxfordshire. It's the movement of goods and services in nuclear across the UK on new build decommissioning and everything that happens in nuclear. It's all governed currently by our membership of the Euratom Treaty.
Okay, and so what happens to existing nuclear arrangements and programmes once we leave?
Well, in that 2-year period, we will need to replicate a whole series of agreements that currently exist through Euratom. So, for example, the UK's nuclear cooperation agreement with the United States currently comes through Euratom. That would need to be replaced. That would need to go through Congress. We would need to have our own system of safeguarding inspections to make sure that we're complying with our non-proliferation obligations. Currently, that's done by Euratom. We would need to then do that ourselves to international standards. There's a whole range of practical things that need to be done in a very, very short period of time. So, what's absolutely crucial is that in that period of time, we get those things in place, and the government looks to ensure that we have some transitional arrangements to make sure that if we don't quite meet that deadline, that we're not affecting the ability to generate and to build the new power stations.
And so how does it affect something like Hinkley Point, for example? That's built by largely a French company. It's a French design. Does that hinder that process at all?
Well, Hinkley Point is under construction at the moment, and 64% of the value of that project is from UK companies, but there will be people that will need to come from elsewhere to help to develop that in the latter stages. So it's really, the crucial point is about getting those things in place in that 2-year period so it doesn't potentially affect that into the future. So it won't affect anything in the very short term, but potentially after 2 years, if we haven't got everything in place, then it might have some impact. It might just make it more complicated than it needs to be, than it is currently, and we don't think that's a very good idea for the needs for the country's power supply.
Well, you talk about power supply. Can you sort of paint a picture a little for the ordinary person? A big percentage of the country's electricity is powered via Euratom. I mean, what happens there?
Well, currently about 21% of our electricity each year is produced by our existing nuclear power plants. So they will continue to generate power as they have done for, 30, 40 years in some cases. But what the impact on Euratom will be that when, for example, if a power station shuts to be for maintenance, if there's a part that needs to be refurbished, or that quite often will happen in another country, it might happen in Germany, for example. So we'd have to have the agreements in place to make sure those components are able to be moved. That happens seamlessly now through Euratom. So we need to replicate those agreements. Otherwise, it just means that you could have something that takes a lot longer, is more complicated, is more expensive, is more disruptive than it needs to be.
What does it mean for nuclear development in the country?
Well, it potentially has a big impact in research and development, for example, on fusion research, which happens at Culham in Oxfordshire at the moment. That's part of a multinational programme. We've got the leading science happening in the UK at the moment, so it could affect that because that's funded through Euratom programme. It could also affect issues around the decommissioning and the safeguarding, all the range of different things that need to happen. Almost all of that comes through in some way or other through the Euratom framework, because that treaty has existed since 1957. The UK has been part of it since we joined the old EEC. So there's a lot to unpick and to replicate and to put in place in a relatively short period of time, when we also know the government have got a lot of other things to do if they, as soon as Article 50 is triggered in relation to leaving the European Union.
Okay, Tom, we'll have to leave it there. Well, that's it for now. I'll be back in an hour's time with more business news and more news about energy and Brexit here at the Museum of Science and Industry.
Lovely, Shirley, we'll see you then. Thank you.